Okay, everybody, welcome to week number 2 of creative presentation. I'm glad to see that you guys are with me. Those of you that are here live, thank you for taking the time out of your busy days and your schedules to attend the live session. I think it's very beneficial to see everything that's going on, to get the chat box version, to get your questions or comments responded to immediately here in the chat, in the live session. But that's no problem if you're not able to. Of course, I am recording this session, and I will post this within a couple of hours after the conclusion of our live session. So either way, if you're watching live or if you're watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to watch all of this vital information to be successful throughout the course. So week number 2 is a very busy week, and we'll get into a lot of the details of the assignment. So hopefully you guys are feeling a little bit more settled and more comfortable just moving around the platform, moving through the course as well, and getting used to, where everything is and where you need to go to find everything that you need to be successful. So hopefully you're feeling just much better than you were here a week ago. So as we're moving through today, I wanted to start by reminding you guys to please add your photos to the FSO platform when you get a chance. It really helps me tie the names and faces together. Again, I have 3 full sections of creative presentation, which amounts to about 75 students for this class, and then I have another class as well. So anything you guys can do to just kind of help me out and place names and faces together, I highly appreciate that. So if you haven't done so, please be sure to upload your photo to the platform. Your other instructors will appreciate that as well. So if you haven't been with us live last week, if you're joining us for the first time live, just take a couple of minutes and get acquainted with the Go-To Training Control Panel. There are options for you to raise your hand if you have a question, if you'd like to speak over the microphones, and those kind of options. You also have the chat box where you can chat with me or your classmates as we're moving throughout the afternoon. And so those are going to be the 2 main items that you will need to be aware of if you're in the live session. Unfortunately, you can't see the chat box if you're in the recorded session. All right, guys, so before I move into week number 2, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to just recap some things that traditionally I see as you move in from, you're moving from week number 1 into week number 2, and things that I think everybody could just use a little bit of reminder and refresher for to be successful throughout the class. So as we are approaching the end of week 1, which is tonight, we had that extra day because of last week's Memorial Day weekend. You guys didn't have to turn in your assignments until tonight, which is June 4th at 11:59 p.m. But I did go through this morning and looked at the submissions of the 1.4 assignment, which is the TED Talk assignment. And I just took a quick look at them to just be sure that those that are turning it in early were on the right track. So if you guys would please be sure to just pop into the platform between now and the due date of tonight at 11:59 p.m. if you happen to catch this before then. I've sent a couple of messages out to students that might want to take another look at their assignment, revise it, and resubmit before the deadline because perhaps some items just were missing some of the steps, or they just weren't as detailed as I would like to see. And I'm just trying to help you guys out to obtain the most amount of points possible for this assignment. And you guys did turn them in early, so I wanted to reach out to you. If there isn't a message in there, more than likely the assignment looks good, and I will get to grading those tomorrow morning. But I wanted to reach out, with this extra day, this weird extra day that's in there. Normally your due dates are going to be Sundays, but we have until tonight to complete the 1.3 and the 1.4 assignments from week 1. So just wanted to kind of put a note out and let you guys know about that. All right, so some reminders and some things I want you to be aware of as you're moving into week 2 and beyond with not only my course, but then also other courses at Full Sail. So first and foremost, number 1 is you guys need to be watching the Go-To session. So for the ones that are here live, I'm obviously preaching to the choir, but there's so much detailed, specific information, not only about the course, but about the assignments, going over the assignments in detail, showing examples of the assignments, answering questions about the assignments and the expectations. This is really your starting place, is the Go-To sessions. And of course, I'll provide the recording in a couple of hours. And you guys, even if you are attending live and you had some additional questions, you may always go back and rewatch it, or just say, I think she mentioned that. Let me just go check out and see where that was. And you might just scroll scroll up to where I'm talking about that particular assignment this week and just watch that snippet. But I oftentimes get questions from students asking me items that have been clearly addressed in the go-to session. And that's oftentimes what I will suggest is please make sure that you have taken the time to watch that. It's vital information. It's definitely information that you need to be successful in the course. Number 2 on the list is FSO support. So I talked about this last week, and I would like to remind you guys that I am not going to be the top person on your list to provide you technical assistance. That would be FSO support. So if you're having any issues with uploading to the platform, perhaps it's software issues, those types of items, FSO support is going to be your number one resource there. They have a lot more capabilities than I do to help you solve those technical issues. So please just remember that they are available to you. They're there for you. And please reach out to them if you need technical assistance. Number 3, so we're doing these go-to sessions very early in the week. It's a Monday at 2 p.m. The remainder of our sessions will be on Mondays at 2 p.m. So we're meeting very early in the week. That means you have the remainder of the week to get in touch with me and ask for help during those times. Often students will wait until the last minute. It might be Friday, Saturday, Sunday before they even open the instructions, which is something I would definitely try to persuade you not to do, as we'll talk about with time management next. But you need to be asking me for help early in the week. I'm happy to help you out, happy to talk with you on the phone, but there's going to be times where I'm not available over the weekends or, there to help you at the very last minute. Oftentimes on the weekends, it's just kind of focus on family time, which I'm sure you guys do too, but you do have access to me throughout my office hours, all throughout the week. So make sure that you've at least opened the assignment, you have a good understanding of it, you've watched the go-to session early in the week, and so any questions can be addressed Monday through Friday during my office hours. Okay, guys, so number 4, time management. I'm sure you guys will see that you probably had no idea what to expect just coming into class last week. And that's, of course, going to be a little bit of a learning curve for some. And sometimes part of that is learning how to just get better at managing your time. So my suggestion would be to work on these assignments in manageable chunks as opposed to leaving it till one day. I know you all have busy schedules and you need to do what you need to do for your schedules, and that's perfectly fine. But my suggestion for working through the time management issues is to try to set up your week in an organized format where everything has been laid out and you're accomplishing something with the course at least every day, if not every other day. Because if you wait till the last minute, I think especially in week number 2, you will see it really becomes very overwhelming if you leave it to that very last minute. Number 5, the due dates. So all due dates, and you guys will see it tonight. If you haven't submitted your week 1 work, you will see tonight that at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and everything for Full Sail is always going to be Eastern Standard Time because that's where the campus is located in that time zone. But you will see at 11:59 that assignment submission area will be open, and at midnight when it clicks to the next day, it will close, and it will no longer let you drag and drop or submit your assignments anymore. So you have to reach out to me. I have to reopen the assignment area manually. So be sure, guys, that you are submitting prior to that cutoff time, which is always going to be 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So number 6, this kind of goes in with that. Deadlines and late work. So you'll start to see that, the deadlines come as a weekly expectation, and we'll start to move into that. For the first week, I'm very empathetic and understanding that you guys are all still getting acclimated to the course. Some of you guys may be late starts, and I understand that totally. So in the first week, I traditionally do not apply a late penalty for work that is submitted past the due date. It is something that I do ask that you reach out to me and let me know what's going on, but I won't apply the standard late penalty. So here's how it will work from week 2 and on. If something is late, it will be, you're still able to submit the work up to 3 days. You must contact me and ask for an extension, but I will more than likely provide you a standard 3-day extension, and it will be a deduction of 10 points per day for that late work. Okay, so if you have an assignment due on Sunday and you don't turn it in until Wednesday, that's an automatic 30 points off of your assignment. That's a hefty late penalty. But you've got you've got to be sure that you're staying on track with the due dates and your time management. So that's how it will work from here moving forward. You do need to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you an extension. However, late penalties will apply. The only reason why they wouldn't apply is if you have some type of written document, written paperwork, showing maybe a medical emergency or something of that nature, that would excuse that late work, or let me know. Or if you have an accommodations letter, which students have already reached out to me for that obviously would not include a late penalty. Okay, so number 7, and a couple of students reached out to me regarding this. When you are using a web-based program, a lot of you guys used Adobe Spark, which I'm glad to see, but as you're moving into later submissions, maybe YouTube or Prezi, if you're creating something on the internet and you need to submit it, you can't drag and drop the website. It won't be successful in the FSO platform. So instead, you need to open up a Word document, include your name, and then the link to the assignment, and upload that Word document as your submission. I will then open up the Word document, click on the link, and then grade the assignment. So that's the workaround for using web-based programs to get it into the FSO platform. Lastly is the file naming conventions. This is just a good habit for you guys to get into, is to start naming in an organized fashion, start naming your files as you move through not only my class, but everyone else's class. So you want to get into this habit. It's pretty standard throughout Full Sail. It will need to be last name _ first name _ assignment name. And there's an example for you with my own name. If you didn't do it this first week, that's no problem. I'm not going to count a penalty or anything like that. But I think it's just a great suggestion for you to get into. Some of your other instructors will be expecting that. All right, so I do want to pause here and see if there's anything that you guys had questions about or you'd like me to clarify regarding these reminders, or anything that you have noticed in week number 1. So if you have a question, you can just type it in the chat box, or I will look for raised hands at this point. Any questions? Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything at this point just yet, but I will obviously stop periodically as we're moving through the material this week. So as of tomorrow morning, and I also mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that I provided a little bit of feedback for those that have submitted the 1.4 assignment early this week. Please absorb my feedback. I do take a lot of time and energy to give you guys personalized feedback, not only to help you improve on your assignments, but just help grow overall, especially as we're moving into week number 2, 3, and 4, as you're starting to build your presentations. We'll talk about that in a moment. But you will receive not only a numerical grade for each assignment, but you will also receive written or verbal feedback from me. So be sure that you're taking those things into account, and then you're really placing those things into action in your remaining assignments throughout the month. So this week is week number 2. And it's quite a busy week. I like to tell my students this is when it starts getting real. So last week was kind of to slide you into the course and get you used to it. But week number 2 really starts to formulate what you'll be working on and building throughout the remainder of the month. So this week is all about planning ahead, learning how to plan for something coming up. And what we're planning for is the Brand Yourself presentation. And this is the presentation that you will start off in phase number 1 by building a detailed plan. And that's your main assignment this week. And I'll go into great detail about that in a moment. But phase number 1 is the planning phase. Phase number 2 is a first draft of the Brand Yourself presentation. And then phase number 3 is, of course, the final draft. And that's what we will be working on for the remaining weeks of our course. But people have a tendency to kind of breeze over the planning step, the brainstorming step, the research step. And that's what we're going to be concentrating on quite a bit this week. And just to kind of recap for you guys, what is the Brand Yourself presentation? I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I wanted to review it in a bit more detail this week. So when I talk about the Brand Yourself presentation, this is actually going to be your final project for the course, but we work on it in a span of 3 weeks, if you will. So what I'm asking you to do for this assignment, for the Brand Yourself presentation in overall general terms, you will be focusing or taking the perspective that you are a recent graduate from your degree program at Full Sail, and you're kind of moving into that next phase, and you are pitching yourself to a target audience. Now, your target audience, I will ask, either be a company or a client that you would like to work with in the future. Okay, so some of you guys are wanting to be employees of a company, and some of you want to be entrepreneurs. And I completely understand there's major differences between these two paths. But for the purposes of this assignment, your audience does need to be clearly identified as either a company or a client that you would like to work with in the future. So once you've identified that audience, you're going to start building an entire presentation, an audio and visual presentation that pitches yourself to this particular audience. And you'll be using some of the research that we will start talking about today, along with the vocal delivery, the verbal delivery, as well as images to really communicate with your target audience. That's the ultimate goal that we are working towards, the brand yourself presentation. But this week, you're not creating the presentation just yet. You are creating a detailed plan, a plan of action, if you will, of how to move from the planning phase and start to make it a more audio-visual presentation. And I'll go over all the assignment details in a moment. But you really need to have a solid plan before you begin to create a presentation. So that's really what we're working towards. But this week, in week number 2, let's take this in manageable chunks. Here's what you need to accomplish in week 2. So right now we are completing the 2.1 go-to session. Be sure you pop back into the platform and just check off that you have either watched the live session or the recording before the due date of June 10th, which is this upcoming Sunday. All the due dates this week are going to be Sunday, June 10th, with one exception, and I'll get to that in a moment. The 2.2, the learning activities, that's going to be your reading for the week, and there's going to be a little extra step involved that you didn't have to do last week in order to complete that assignment. 2.3 is the emotional storytelling discussion. This kind of mimics the same format that we used last week with the 2 due dates. So you will have 2 due dates once again for this discussion board. The first post is due this upcoming Thursday, and that is going to be June 7th, I do believe. And then you need to make your 2 reply posts by June 10th. And then lastly, your major assignment of the week is planning a presentation. That is going to be due on June 10th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So let's move on to our assignments this week. Okay, so the 2.2 activities, the learning activities, is going to be your reading from Slideology and Resonate. So last week we really concentrated heavily on Resonate, and this week we're going to concentrate quite a bit on Slideology. So in Slideology, please read chapter 12, and then 1, 2, 5, and 9 from that text, and then chapter 9 from the Resonate text. So there's going to be quite a bit of reading this week. And in order for you to get credit for this assignment, I would like you to pop back into the platform and let me know just one new piece of information that you've learned from one of these chapters that I've just mentioned. I'd also like you to explain how you plan to use this information moving forward in your presentation. So you have to just type out a quick post in here to show that you have completed that reading this week, and that will handle the 2.2 assignment. Super quick, super easy for that one. Okay, so this one is the 2.3 emotional storytelling discussion. I really like this week, guys, because I get to know your personalities a little bit better, because you're actually going to be doing some storytelling this week and sharing it not only with me, but with your classmates as well in the discussion board. So this one is worth 5% of your total grade. And I've actually included my own example of this project in my post to you guys, that initial post within the discussion board. So you have a good example there that you can go by. It's me just talking to my computer about the song The Dance by Garth Brooks and how that's had an emotional impact on me. So really for this assignment, so there's a bunch of goals with this one, but I really want you guys to start getting comfortable using microphones and using your own voice as a powerful tool in the delivery of your information, okay? So this will be an audio-visual project. It's not written. It's going to be something that you speak and that you say verbally, and you record yourself and post that as your submission for this assignment. But primarily, I want you to focus on your vocals this week, your voice. The visuals are really going to be complementary in this assignment. I'm not necessarily grading the visual aspect of this assignment. I'm really focused on how you are incorporating the different variety and the different items in your vocal toolbox in the delivery of your message. So first and foremost, I want you to listen to this quick TED Talk from a man named Julian Treasure. And he talks about something called the Hale method and the vocal toolbox. And we'll talk about that in a moment, what those items mean. But it's a super short, sweet, to the point TED Talk, but it gives a lot of great information about the different ranges of your voice and the power of your voice and how to incorporate that into a story and to speak so that people will want to listen to you. Okay. The goal obviously is to not deliver a flat monotone voice when you're speaking. It's to have energy and passion and enthusiasm behind it as you're conveying those emotions. So I want you to watch the vocal toolbox and the Hale method, all of that within the TED Talk, within Julian Treasure's TED Talk. You do have access to the grading rubric as well as the instructions. And I will go over both of those here, but those are easily accessible within the platform in this section here for you. All right, so these are the instructions about the initial post for the 2.3 assignment. Again, this is due on Thursday. Some students in other classes might have to have this in by Wednesday. I do give you guys until Thursday. I think this one does take a little bit longer to create the initial post, so I wanted to give that to you, that extra day for you. Thursday by midnight Eastern time, this should be submitted into the discussion board. If it is late, if it is submitted past Thursday at midnight, there will be a 5-point deduction if the initial post is late. It's not as severe as the other assignments, but there is just a slight deduction there. So what I'm asking you to do for the initial post, I want you to think of your favorite piece of art or media that has had an emotional impact on you. Maybe it's been an inspiration to you. You guys are such creative students, so I'm sure there must be some type of piece of art or media that just sticks out to you as something that's drawn you into your career path or your love for games, for music, for movies, things like that. So you're really not limited too much with the subject of this assignment. It can be a piece of art or media. So oftentimes I do see songs, I do see video games quite a bit, but I also see paintings, photographs, sculptures, novels. Those types of items can definitely be used as your subject here. But it does need to be a piece of art or media. I will also ask that it be a piece of art or media that someone else has created, not your own. So something else that has been an inspiration to you. You may mention how this piece of art or media has inspired you to create items, but this subject should really be someone else's piece of art. So for my example, I chose a song, as I just mentioned, it was Garth Brooks' The Dance. But you guys, there's obviously a massive amount of art or media out there that you could be choosing for this assignment. But I do want it to be something that you are emotionally connected to, something that you are inspired by, because the goal with this assignment is to pull emotion into your voices throughout the delivery. So for your initial post, it should be you recording yourself verbally and delivering a 2 to 3 minute audio-visual project. And I want you to respond to all 4 prompts listed below. So here's the first prompt. When did you first encounter this work of art? Second, what emotional effect did it have on you? Third, why is it your favorite? And fourth, what does this work inspire you to do? So in the span of 2 to 3 minutes, you should be verbally answering those 4 prompts. And I would like you to incorporate the items that Julian Treasure mentions, the Hale method and the vocal toolbox. And if you haven't watched it thus far, watch it, but I'm going to give you just a brief synopsis of what those things are. So first he talks about the Hale method, and that's an acronym. It stands for these 4 words: honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. And as Julian Treasure says, it's when you project those items, honesty and authenticity, integrity, and love, as you're speaking, it really does resonate and connect with your audience. He also talks about the items in the vocal toolbox, things like your register, your timbre, prosody, your pacing, Silence is another great way to make an impact with an audience, as well as your pitch, your tone, and your volume. So this takes some work. This doesn't necessarily happen for everybody overnight. Some people are natural storytellers, natural speakers. They use their voices in very powerful ways, but some of us really have to work at it. So this might be an assignment that pushes you out of your comfort zone quite a bit, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you're trying, you're practicing to incorporate some of these items into the verbal delivery, you'll do a fantastic job. And make sure you're using a subject that has emotionally impacted you as well. So that's going to be the initial post, and that is what is due by Thursday at midnight. So once you've completed the initial post, you do need to come back into the platform between Thursday and Sunday and reply to at least 2 different classmates. And I would like you guys to have, really great responses, because I've got 2 replies or 2 items that you should reply to your students or to your classmates about. First, I want you to explain how their posts use effective communication tools like the vocal toolbox and the Hail to connect with their audience. So specifically mention, hey, I thought you did a great job with the pacing of your delivery, and you really exude authenticity from the Hail method as you were talking about this piece of art. Something like that along those lines. Number 2, describe the reaction that you had when you listened to your classmate's story. Provide details explaining why you had that reaction. So again, guys, I want you to make sure that your replies have substance to them, not just, hey, great job on that post, okay? They really need to follow those 2 replies, those 2 prompts that are shown here in the instructions. So that needs to be the rounding of your assignment. It's the initial post and then the 2 reply posts to your classmates by Sunday. All right, and so here's the 3rd page of the instructions. So there's a couple of options on how to complete this assignment. So first, you can just record a video if you'd like to. Many of you guys have cell phones with a camera, a smartphone. Most of you guys have recording apps. I personally did mine on my MacBook. I have the program QuickTime, so I just set up my laptop and talked to the camera. You don't have to appear on camera. You don't have to, but if you're comfortable with that and you would like to, I absolutely invite you to do it. So you would just need to upload the link to that assignment, or if you have it saved, maybe as an MP3, maybe MP4, whatever it happens to be, you can upload that as your submission. Again, you do not have to appear on camera. I'm not grading your visual appearance in any way for this project, but I am listening to and grading the verbal delivery. So I do need to be able to hear you clearly. If you don't want to do a video, you can just submit an audio file over images. Perhaps you want to share an image of yourself. Maybe it's an image of the piece of art or media that you're referring to. That can kind of be the checkoff for the audio visual portion of the assignment. And there's a couple of different softwares that you could use, and getting everything uploaded into the platform. So you have a couple of different options there, but the most vital thing you need this week is going to be a microphone or a recording app in order for you to get your voice recorded and submitted into the platform. All right, so here's the rubric, and then we'll stop and I'll pause for questions. So here's how I'm grading your 2.3 assignment. I'm grading first on content, which is really basically going back to those 4 prompts that I mentioned at the very beginning. Did you address all 4 of those prompts within your assignment? The rationale, did you express your opinions and ideas in a clear and concise manner with obvious connections to the piece of art? Are you staying focused on talking about this piece of art, or does it kind of go off in a tangent? You really need to stay focused on why this piece of art has inspired you. The learning community, this has to do with those 2 reply posts. So if you don't reply to at least 2 other students and address those prompts that I just mentioned, you won't receive the full credit for that. And it's really painful to see someone that does a phenomenal initial post but doesn't reply to any of their classmates, because it's an automatic 30 points off, which is a 70, which is a D at full sale. I hate assigning those grades, but if you don't complete the assignment in full, unfortunately, that's what will happen. And then lastly, with the delivery, I'm looking for exceptional confidence with the material through clear articulation and enthusiasm. I'm also looking at the time. So it does need to be between 2 to 3 minutes. Time parameters count. So if you go over or under, there will be a grade deduction because of that. It's not huge, it's not massive, but you do need to start being aware of time parameters and how it will affect the assignment. So 2 to 3 minutes is the time parameter here. All right, so again, this is 5% of your grade. The initial post is due by Thursday, June 7th, and then the 2 reply posts are due by Sunday, June 10th. So I'll pause here, let me back up one, and see if you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like me to clarify about the 2.3 assignment. Okay, Amber, I'm going to repeat your question. If we choose music for this assignment, can we choose a music artist as a whole, or does it have to be a single song? Amber, that's a great question. I think, say for instance, I'm just going to pop a person out here, Michael Jackson. Say for instance, you wanted to talk about Michael Jackson's influence on you over time as a whole. I think that is fine, but really make sure that you're able to answer those 4 questions that I addressed in the initial post. So I'm fine with that if you wanted to use an artist as a whole. If you wanted to reference maybe 1 or 2 songs, that would be great as well. Dustin, can we make it a video with some pictures over top of it? Dustin, absolutely. You can make it a video. I would say that the portion that you really need to concentrate on is the verbal delivery. A lot of students get kind of wrapped up in the visual aspect of it, but as you can see, I'm not really grading much of the visual aspect of this assignment. So just be sure that verbal delivery is really, conveying a lot of those great emotions, energy, passion, enthusiasm as you're talking. And if you want to go even above and beyond that with your creativity with the video, that's absolutely fine. So any other questions about this assignment? Well, I'm not seeing anything at this point. Of course, we'll kind of hang around towards the end of the day to chat. If you guys have any questions that come up about it, I will absolutely address them. Please don't freak out about this one. A lot of students get a little hesitant, a little bit shy because it is their voice, and most of us don't like the sound of our own voice at first. But it's something that you start to get used to, and definitely want to start working with and practicing with. If this is not something that comes naturally to you, it does take some practice and some time and energy. I do see a lot of students when they start to post their initial post, whatever that happens to be, they start saying, okay, well, this is take number 65. And, don't feel like you have to have this absolutely perfect. But I do want you to be very comfortable with it because you are sharing it with not only me, but your classmates as well. So work on it a couple of times, maybe practice it through, write out your script. Now, you don't want to make it sound like you're reading it word for word. You want to have a very conversational tone, but of course, write out your script, time it out, and just start talking and having that conversational tone throughout the delivery. But it might take you a couple of times before you feel comfortable with the submission. Just kind of putting that out there that it might take a little bit more time than you initially thought. All right, I'm going to move on to the 2.4 assignment. And this one is a rather lengthy assignment. I think there's quite a bit of research and detail that goes into this assignment, but I will say this, guys, work as hard as you can in week number 2, just to put your time and your effort and your energy into this assignment, the 2.4 planning assignment, because it really will set you up to be in a great position for weeks 3 and 4. This is really the foundation work. This is all that behind the scenes work that people do to deliver a fantastic, 3 to 4 minute presentation. It does take a lot of work behind the scenes, and that's what this week is all about, creating an effective plan for the Brand Yourself presentation. So this assignment is 20% of your grade. It's obviously an assignment that you should not blow off. You should not forget about this one, and you really should start kind of taking this in manageable chunks and completing it throughout the week. So for this assignment, you're not necessarily creating a presentation this week. Instead, you're drafting a detailed plan for the final assignment, which is the Brand Yourself presentation, okay? Where you're going to pitch your future self as a recent graduate of Full Sail to either an employer or a client, or company or a client, of your choice in your chosen industry. That's what we're working towards. But this week, it is a written assignment, and it is a detailed plan that you are crafting and creating. All right, so what goes into your plan? So the planning phase really doesn't have a required standard look, format, or feel to it. Okay, you can do this in any way that you like, whatever way that you're comfortable with. I just need to be sure that you are communicating all of the steps and details of this assignment. Oftentimes it looks very, very different from one student to the next. So Nancy Duarte talks about using a spark line. You might want to try this for your planning and your presentation flow. Or maybe you like mind mapping. I don't mind you guys using mind map. Those software programs that have that. I don't think they're very effective as an assignment submission. It doesn't necessarily communicate and convey your information very well. Keep in mind, you always want to have your audience in the forefront of your mind. Who am I delivering this information to, and how will it make the most amount of sense, okay? So you can use those mind mapping softwares, but I would suggest not using it as your submission. But it is great for brainstorming, I will say that. Some of you guys are linear thinkers, and you want to have something just more like a Word document, and that's fine too. The example I will show you today is a fantastic example created in Adobe Spark, and it's very well laid out, very nicely organized and easy to follow. But this assignment, no matter how you make it look and no matter how you deliver the information, it must include details, okay? I don't necessarily need the full script of your presentation, but enough detail to where if you were to hand it off to someone else, that they could have a really great picture of what you plan to do and accomplish within your presentation, okay? So think of this really, guys, we talked about roadmaps and GPS systems last week. Think of this assignment as your roadmap. And maps are detailed and they're specific. And if they're vague, they cannot be followed closely, and more than likely your audience will be lost in getting to their final destination. So you need to give me directions and specific details, okay? So I'll provide you an example in a bit. So these are the instructions, which I think is a hot mess and a lot of information to present to you at one time. So what I've done over the next several slides is I've taken this into the different segments of this assignment and what I am expecting for you to complete with a 2.4 assignment. Okay, so I will take this craziness, all of this information here, and break it down into more manageable chunks for you guys and explain the assignment. All right, so first and foremost, with the planning assignment, you must clearly identify your target audience. And the more specific about your audience, the better, because that major concept of the audience being the hero needs to start to come to life here, with not only the planning assignment, but then in the future in the brand yourself presentation. So I gave you guys two options for your audience. You may either choose a company that you would like to work for in the future, or if you'd rather take an entrepreneurial route and you want to be the owner of your own company, or you wanted to be a contractor, work for yourself, you can also choose a client that you would like to work with in the future. But if you do take that route, it does tend to be a little trickier with identifying your audience. So oftentimes I do ask you guys to narrow that audience as much as you possibly can so that you can tailor your presentation to speak directly to that audience. You don't want to make it so broad as my audience is every artist, that's looking for someone to work with, or my audience is the internet. Okay, that's way too broad, and it really needs to be narrowed quite a bit so that your presentation can make an impact. But I'm also going to ask you guys to do some research about your audience, and I'll show you how to do some research about a company, one that's located here in Orlando. In a couple of minutes, I'll just walk you through a couple of screenshots on how to just do some basic information about your audience. Investigate them, find out what's important to them. What is it that they're looking for with a potential candidate? What is their company culture like? What is it like to work with them and for them in the future? Okay, so make sure you've done some background research about your target audience. Next, I want you to communicate your true message or your big idea. What are you offering this audience, and what do you want them to take away from the presentation? Okay, this is basically your ability to define your purpose of this assignment, okay? These are your goals and your purpose. And you really need to get that true message and big idea nailed down before moving forward with the planning phase, because every portion of this planning assignment needs to come back and satisfy or meet the goals that you have laid out for this assignment. All right, star moments, and we'll talk about this in detail. But you will also identify at least one star moment that you intend to use throughout this presentation. So what is a star moment? A star moment is an acronym, another acronym here, but STAR stands for something they'll always remember, okay? Something that Nancy Duarte talks about. And it's really just the creation of a moment where you dramatically drive that big idea home. So I'm encouraging you to use at least one, if not more, of the 5-star moments throughout your presentation. So here are the 5 types of star moments that are identified by Nancy Duarte. So the first would be a memorable dramatization, okay? In our situation with an online delivery, this might be a little bit harder to do as opposed to a live delivery of your presentation. But if you think about something like perhaps, back, over a decade ago, Steve Jobs demonstrating the first iPhone. Okay, that's a memorable dramatization. That's an example of that. A little tough to use in our medium, but definitely one of the 5 types of star moments. Next would be a repeatable soundbite. This is something that your audience can easily remember, something that you would repeat throughout your presentation for your audience to kind of tie together with you. Maybe a brand mantra. Some companies use this as their slogans, things like that. I do see repeatable sound bites used quite a bit from my students. This is another great way to make an impact. Most of you guys will use evocative visuals to connect with your audience, and we'll talk in week 3 much more about how to make an impact using your visuals. But you need to indicate if you are intending to use evocative visuals as your star moment. Powerful, emotionally charged images work the best, and we'll talk much more in week 3 about visuals. Number 4, I think this is the one that the majority of students use for this presentation, and that's emotive storytelling. Attaching emotion to a story really helps to make it memorable. And most of you guys will start your presentations connecting with your audience using storytelling and just making that solid connection with them. But please be sure you've indicated that this is what you intend to use for your star moment. Lastly is shocking statistics. I would say if you want to use shocking statistics, limit it to 1, no more than 2, because you don't want to have a huge presentation just completely overwhelming the audience with statistics and numbers. They tend to lose their impact the more that you add, but 1 or 2 absolutely would work well here. All right, so remember, this is going to be a moment in your presentation that really stands out and grasps the attention of the audience. So you must include at least 1 star moment. And next week, I will invite you guys to watch a TED Talk by Amanda Palmer. And she uses all 5 of these star moments beautifully. We'll talk about her TED Talk next week. But if you wanted to get a jump start on that, you can absolutely just Google Amanda Palmer TED Talk, and you will see how she uses all 5 of these throughout her presentation. But you guys, for your plan, need to be sure that you have clearly indicated which of the 5 star moments you intend to use, and just a quick sentence or 2 on how you intend to use it. All right, so the next and last section of this assignment is going to be the presentation flow. So this is going to be the bulk of this assignment, because this is what your script will start to resemble, okay? The presentation flow will eventually become your script, and it should be organized into 3 main sections: a clear beginning, and a middle, and an end. And I asked you guys to watch one TED Talk prior to our session today, and that is a TED Talk by Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. Did anyone get a chance to watch this yet today? And you can answer in the chat box if you had the ability to watch this. Anyone watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk? Gretchen, thank you. I'm glad you were able to see it. Mercedes also, yes. So thank you guys for watching that. Hopefully it kind of just started to make you think. And what really, Simon Sinek talks about is the significance of understanding and learning your why. Why is it that you're passionate about the path that you're on, passionate about the industry that you want to work in? What is your why? And Simon Sinek talks about companies that know their why, that know exactly why it is that they do what they do, are more successful than companies that don't have a clear grasp and understanding about this. Same concept here for your presentation. I want you guys to have a solid idea of your own why. And this is the idea of the golden circle. He talks about, companies and individuals that communicate their why first are going to connect with their audience, then talk about how it is that they're qualified, and then lastly, what it is that they intend to do to make that happen. Okay. In reverse, a lot of companies talk about the what, the how, and the why, and they're not as successful. So use this idea of the golden circle to communicate your own idea throughout your own presentation. So one of those repeatable sound bites that he uses, and I think was very effective, and I'd like to share that with you guys, is he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And he gave examples of, how we're all perfectly comfortable buying a multitude of products from Apple, a computer company, but not other companies that are, perfectly, qualified to do the same thing. Why is it that many, many people choose Apple over other products? He also talks about the Wright brothers and Dr. Martin Luther King and their success with what they were doing. Okay. So start with your own why. Okay. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This will help to really hook your audience and get them wanting to know more about you. Then I want you to move into how it is that you're going to do that. Talking about your qualifications, your skills, your education. And then lastly, finally, bring it home to talking about your what. What will you provide and what you want the audience to do as a result? So overall, with your presentation flow, it will eventually become your script. And I would like you to kind of think of the perspective of taking this idea that this is going to be an invitation to your audience, okay? Think of it as a trailer or a preview to a movie, right? They want to get the audience enticed to go and pay for the money to buy the ticket to see the full show, right? But those trailers aren't there to give all of the information throughout the movie. That would be pointless. But they are there to entice their audience to want more. And that's the purpose of this Brand Yourself presentation, is to entice your audience, to invite you to come in for more information about you. So I want you to keep that idea of the golden circle in mind as you're crafting your own presentation flow for your presentation. Again, here, why are you inspired to pursue the career that you're going after, the path that you're moving down, the education that you're pursuing currently at Full Sail? Start with your why. Then go into your how. How is it that you're uniquely qualified to be in this industry, to be in this particular position, to work with this particular client, okay? And I'll show you how to do some degree research in a moment on the Full Sail website. And then lastly, what is it that you want to accomplish in your field? So that's kind of the general structure of what your presentation flow should follow. So the presentation flow, as you saw with the instructions, is broken down into a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning should be tied to your why, or what is. How will you quickly resonate with your audience? And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, many of you guys will start your presentation by telling a story. Why is it that you're drawn to this audience? Why is it that you have a connection to this audience? Have you been following them for a significant amount of time? Have they created a piece of work that has inspired you to create as well? What is your connection to the audience? What drew you to the audience? How does your story align with theirs? So start with storytelling and establishing a solid connection with your audience. Once you've done that in the presentation flow, you want to move into the middle, or the how, or what could be. And this is where you want to show your audience what you're bringing to the table. What qualifies you as a unique candidate, okay? And that's where I'm going to show you some particulars about how to include some of the degree research that I expect and pull this into the presentation to really solidify why you would be a uniquely qualified candidate for this particular job or for this particular position with a company. Lastly, you want to end with a call to action. And this is where you tell the audience what you want them to do next, right? You want to give your audience a little bit of homework. You want to give them some direction of what to do next. So really round out your presentation by kind of summarizing what you've already been through, and then tell them what you expect next. That is your call to action. More than likely, you're asking them to connect with you further, invite you in for an interview, something along those lines. So you need to be explicit and direct about that within your presentation flow. So that's going to be the beginning and the middle and the end, which you don't have to have the full script written out at this point, but I do need to have a good idea of what you intend to say and how you intend to connect to your audience. So that section right there, that presentation flow, will be quite a bit of the bulk of this assignment, but the others are just important as well. So that rounds out the requirements for this. So let me go over the rubric and then show you a couple of examples, and we can chat about any questions. So here's the grading rubric. Again, it's 20% of your final grade, so not an assignment that you want to miss out on. So I'm grading based on content. Have you met all of the required portions of this assignment? The audience, the true message, the star moment, and the presentation flow is what I am looking for, or all of the requirements of this assignment. And have you addressed the content thoroughly? Critical thinking. Is your information detailed, in depth, and well supported? I am looking for details and depth with this assignment to get a good overview of where you're headed. Relevance. I am looking for you guys to directly relate back to the course materials, the lectures, the textbooks, the videos, the articles, all of those items, directly relating it back to that and pulling it into your assignment. And then lastly, this is a written assignment, so I am looking at the mechanics, that you're demonstrating exceptional grammar, spelling, punctuation, capitalization, all of those fun items. And so that will be the 4 different areas that I am looking at for grading this assignment. So I want to pause here before I move forward with some demonstrations and examples to see if there's any questions at this point that I can answer. No questions? Any questions at all? Okay, guys. Well, I'm not seeing anything come through. Oh, wait. Brett, thank you. You answered my questions already. Perfect. Good. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate you responding. So let me show you a couple of different tools and resources to use for completing this assignment. And first is going to be the fullsail.com website. All right, so I wanted to show you guys how to do a little bit of research about your degree program. And you should be seeing the Full Sail website on your screen right now. I'm just going to kind of do a walkthrough example of how to do this. So for that middle section of the presentation flow, I ask you to research your degree program and incorporate how it is that you're uniquely qualified. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sports broadcasting degree program. It's one of the newest ones from Full Sail, but I'm going to use this as an example of how to walk through doing some research. These steps can be applied to any degree program, but this will be kind of focused on just how to move through that degree program. I wanted to let you know. But as you move through here, you can see that the 8 different degree programs are listed on the website on the front page, the fullsail.edu page. So I'm going to click on sports, and that's going to give me even further options here. So I'm going to click on the sports broadcasting bachelor's. Okay, so say for instance, for the purposes of this assignment, I'm pitching myself to ESPN, right, for sports broadcasting. I want to be a sports broadcaster with ESPN in the future. So I really need to talk about how it would be that I'm qualified for a position with ESPN, all right? So I want to look into some of my courses that I'm going to be taking over the next couple of years. So you want to look at the online bachelor's program, and you can look at your course schedule. And this is true of any of the degree programs. It will have this same structure and format. But of course, the schedule is going to look different for each degree program. So here you guys are way up here in creative presentation, working through your core classes, but quicker than you think you're going to be in your specific courses for your degree program. So say, for instance, obviously I want to work at ESPN, so they probably want to see that I've got some vocal training, right? So, oh, look, I've taken vocal training for Sportscasting 1, or I'm going to take that eventually. So here's a quick description of what you will be learning in this course. And I think this is the items that you want to pull out of your research and communicate to your audience in the Brand Yourself presentation. So in this course, students will explore the philosophy of communicating with audiences and study the pillars of vocal communication. Students will also perform basic vocal exercises and drills to start developing their vocal instrument, okay? So that's obviously something that a company like ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever it happens to be, would want to see, hey, so-and-so has already been trained and done some work with vocal training. That's great to know because that's more than likely something that they're looking for. So that's just one course. I would suggest probably doing this for at least 2 courses, but you want to find out from your audience research what it is that they're looking for. So you're trying to continually tailor your message to meet the needs of the audience. So say we went through the vocal training, but what's something else that ESPN would probably like me to know? And more than likely, let me see if I can find it. They probably want to know that I have some training and background in reporting and practice, okay, interviewing, things like that. And right here it says students will produce and edit television and web news reports under the pressure of deadlines, both for taped and live performances, okay? So thinking of my audience, thinking of the things that they would like to see that I am able to do, those 2 courses really show how I would be uniquely qualified for a position with ESPN or a company such as that, okay? And that's how you do some degree research. I just used the sports broadcasting degree program track as an example. You can do this for each and every one of your degree programs. I know not everybody's in this one, but I wanted to show an example to you guys. Also, let me show you an example while I'm up here. All right, so this is actually created not just last month by a student named Emmanuel in my last month's class. I asked him for permission to share his assignment with you for you guys to use as a guide, and he gave me his permission to do so. But please, guys, be sure that none of his content is appearing in your presentation planning assignment. So just use this as a guide, but I wanted to show you what it is that I'm expecting of exceptional work for this assignment. So he created this using Adobe Spark. I think it's very well organized and easy to follow and gave me a great understanding of where he was headed for his Brand Yourself presentation. All right, so in the very beginning of this example, Emmanuel has said his target audience is going to be Vice, located in Brooklyn, New York. So I know exactly what company he's talking to for this presentation. And he's looking into the audience, looking at what are they looking for? Vice is looking for motivated individuals with experience in entertainment, media, or journalism. Okay, so he found out some of their needs, and that's a great place to start because your job in this presentation is to fulfill and meet the needs of your audience. So you want to get to know your audience, a little bit of background, a little bit about a culture of the company, and what they are looking for in a potential candidate. So he's included some of his audience research within the planning assignment, which is great. He talks about his big idea, short, sweet statement. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but it's his goals of what he wants to get across throughout the presentation. Then he moves into his presentation flow. He talks about how he plans to start the presentation by introducing himself and talking about, his background and how he's passionate about journalism and media. He included quite a bit of great information here, so I had a great working knowledge of where he was headed in the beginning. I thought that the middle was actually very strong here because He's broken this down into three subsections of organization. So we looked at Vice and what they were requiring, and he found that they want someone that has excellent written and verbal skills. So he tapped back into his classes, aesthetics and theory of communications, and how that would meet that particular need that the audience is looking for. Down here, they also say that Vice requires me to be very detail oriented. And he goes back into a discussion about his transmedia storytelling class, his English composition class, and how that would benefit the audience. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get you to kind of all make these connections. What is the audience looking for, and how are you coming to the table to meet those particular needs? And that's how I want you to lay it out here with the planning of the presentation assignment. He puts his ending in here. I would have liked to see a little bit stronger of a call to action here, but definitely on the right track for his assignment. And then lastly, he talks about his star moment, and he's going to provide pictures, which is going to be evocative visuals. So I clearly know which of the 5, if not more, star moments that he was going to use in this presentation. Okay, so I wanted to give you a nice example. I will share this with you guys, the link to his Adobe Spark assignment, so you have access to this past the go-to session. Very clear, very detailed, well-organized assignment. I have complete understanding of where he was headed for the Brand Yourself presentation, but that's what a great example of exemplary work looks like for the 2.4 assignment. So I'll pause here and see if there's any more questions at this point. Anything that I can answer for you guys? Anything at all? Okay, well, I'm going to keep moving on. If something comes up, definitely shoot me a message in the chat box, but I'm going to keep moving forward with the discussion about this assignment and moving on here. So where to get started and brainstorming guidelines, guys. So brainstorming for some is a step that some people just kind of, just ease right through and move right over. But it is not a step that you want to forget about for this assignment. It really is going to be important. And I talked a little bit about mind mapping and those software tools a little bit ago. Some of you guys might find that very useful. Brainstorming is something that can be done and looks very, very different from person to person. Some people just write down ideas. Some people type. Some people just record their voice talking about their ideas. One of the ideas from the Slidology textbook in chapter 2 talks about using Post-it notes or sticky notes and kind of putting ideas and moving them throughout the spaces on a wall to kind of get a time frame or organizational flow to the ideas. There's no particular way or correct way of doing this. But there are a couple of rules to remember when it comes to brainstorming, okay? So you want to postpone and withhold your judgment of ideas. Sometimes it's those ideas that are wild, that are exaggerated, that are out in left field that can really be the ones that are most effective. So go with them. Get all of those ideas out. At this point, quantity counts, not quality. Not every idea has to be the stellar, full of depth idea, but it might be something that spurs you to a different phase. So get all of your ideas out as much as possible. The idea here, and one of my awesome coworkers, Trish Pearson, likes to give the analogy with pasta. And she's like, I'm Italian, and growing up, when I'd have to make pasta, my dad would tell me that I would throw the pasta against the wall, and when it's done, it sticks to the wall. And that's what you're kind of aiming for here, is getting all of these ideas out and finding the one that sticks for you, okay? Also, build on ideas put forth by others, okay? Everything is a collaboration here. And you might find that people are really taking a different perspective, a perspective that perhaps you hadn't seen before. So build on those ideas, collaborate and communicate with each other, and remember that every idea and every person has equal worth in especially with the brainstorming process. We talked about researching your degree program, but you also want to do some research about your audience, okay? Your audience is going to be vital for this presentation, getting to know your audience. So here's some questions to really start thinking of that you should be researching, and I'm showing you a couple of examples or screenshots of an example on how to research an audience that's located here in Orlando. But think about these questions. What company or what client do you want to work for in the future? Maybe some of you know this and you've known this since day number one. Some of you, it's still a question mark, and that's okay. We're just moving through this for the purposes of this assignment. Of course, these things can change. I'm not coming to graduation making sure that you're fulfilling all of these things, but this is definitely a process that you want to go through when preparing a presentation like this one. What position do you want? What are the qualifications for this position? This is an important one here. What is the culture of the company? So just to kind of give you guys a story, I'm sure that you can imagine that if you've been to Full Sail, if you've been on campus, if you've ever seen a campus class, it's very different than your traditional four-year universities like a state university. It's a very different environment, very casual, very creative, laid back environment. The way that people communicate with each other, the way that people meet with each other, the way that we dress, all of that is very, very casual at Full Sail, which is very different from a couple of other colleges and universities. Same with your companies. If you're a suit and tie kind of a person and you're in a very casual, laid back, are you really thinking that that's a good fit for you? Or maybe vice versa. This is a very, suit and tie every single day, formal, executive type position, and you're very, very laid back. Is that something that would fit for you? And so it's worth it to do some investigative work about the culture of the company. Talk about the executives. How do you fit into this position? What have you learned at Full Sail, and what have you accomplished at Full Sail? So those are some questions to kind of get you, kind of get your brain running to figure out who it is that's going to be your audience. Remember, we talked last week about you do not address a love letter with to whom it may concern. Same concept for this assignment. You want to be sure that you are building an entire presentation suited directly for your specific audience. And that's what I'm expecting to start to see. So I told you I'd give you an example, some screenshots of how to research a company. These screenshots are about a year and a half old. So this is probably not what their website looks like at this point. But EA, Electronic Arts, they have a campus here in Orlando, and I thought, okay, well, let's just take them as an example for game design and see what I could find out just doing some basic research about EA. And I was pleased to find that it was very easy to find some information about what it is that they're looking for. They also had a great section entitled University Grads, which if you can find this about your own company that you're looking into, this is going to be fantastic information for you to utilize in your presentation. So I clicked on the University Grad section, and it was really talking to me, just good general overview about what it is that they're expecting and seeking and searching for in recent graduates. But it also gave me 3 very broad categories, just broken down a little bit more into technical, creative, and then also into business. So I went under the creative category and clicked on design. And of course, this gives me a job description, okay? This is what my audience is looking for. So my job would be in my brand myself presentation to fit the needs of this audience, to fulfill the needs that they are looking for. So in a design university grad, they're looking for a Bachelor of Arts in Game Design, a focus in game development, well-versed in a range of 2D and 3D graphics and animation packages such as 3D Studio Max or Maya. So you might find in some of your degree research that you will be learning these programs. So that's something that you can say, hey, you're looking for this? Well, I'm skilled in this particular program. That's something that's a need that I've met here. So really, this is what I want you to kind of move through when you're doing your own research about your audience, and then also the research about your degree program. This is all how it kind of comes together. Can't obviously research each and every company, but just take a couple of minutes and find some background information about your company so you can really connect with them through storytelling, and then talk about how it is that you plan to fulfill their needs. Okay, guys, so here is just kind of a checklist, if you will, that I've created of what it is that you need to be accomplishing throughout this week in completing this assignment. Number one, you need to completely and clearly identify your target audience, okay? So you're not going to be presenting directly to them, but for the purposes of this assignment, I want you to take the perspective that you're speaking to them, not about them. That's one of the main mistakes that I see for students is that they start to deliver an informative speech about their audience. I would rather you guys take that great research so that you can tailor your presentation to talk directly to them. So remember to talk to your audience, not about your audience. What is your presentation flow? That clear beginning, middle, and the end, and kind of tying that to the idea of the golden circle, the why, the how, and the what. What tools do you need? Think about what tools you'll need, specifically software tools, in order to complete this assignment. What is it that you plan to use? Have you gotten a grasp of Adobe Spark and you really want to see what that program can do? So really start to get to know that program a little bit better. Maybe it's going to be PowerPoint or Keynote. Those are two very powerful presentation programs. Perhaps you want to do a video. Okay, so what will you need to complete that video? What tools do you need in order to complete that presentation? What is your message? Okay, what is it that makes you unique? Why should they reach back out to you? Why should they be enticed or energized to connect with you further? Okay, what is your message? Also, think about some obstacles that may be coming your way. Obstacles such as maybe you don't really know these programs very well. And so maybe you need to complete a lynda.com tutorial, or maybe look at some different items to help you get a little bit better versed in these software programs. Perhaps it's the obstacle of time management. Maybe you have a really busy week this week and you've got to try and fit it all in somewhere. So not only anticipate the obstacles, but also start to be a problem solver. How do you intend to work through those challenges? And then lastly, reflect on the process. Always continually look back and say, what changes should I be making and shifting moving forward? Okay, so continually look back and think about the process and how you can shift and change to make it more beneficial. So that's going to be the whole explanation. I know it was a rather lengthy one of the planning assignment, but I wanted to give you guys as much detail as I could give you in order to be as successful as you can with this assignment. Again, I think it's vital to the Brand Yourself presentation that we will begin to create next week with the first draft. But you really need to create a solid foundation for this assignment, okay? And so this week is all about putting in the time and the energy and the effort to do your research and get to know your audience, get to know your degree program, and how you plan to bring all of this to life next week, okay? So I'll pause here, take a drink, and also see if you guys have questions. Hopefully you do. I'm sure that you have, a lot of things swirling through your head right now, and that's fine. But do you have any questions for me about this assignment? You guys are being very quiet today. Any questions at all? I'm shocked that there aren't more questions. All right, guys. Well, I'm not seeing anything come through. Let me just check and see if there's any hands up. No. Amber, thank you. I appreciate that. That just means you're answering most of our questions. I highly appreciate that, Amber. I just want to be sure that, if anything big or small that you're uncertain about, please definitely ask me. Ask me early in the week. If you want to send me a message in the platform, I'm available to answer those for you. Another thing before I move on to just some discussion about creating your brand, I do offer this to students. If you would like me to look at this assignment early, before the due date is June 10th. If you would like me to look at this early in the week to give you my feedback to make sure you're on the right track, you've got everything completed, I will be happy to do that as long as you send it to me by Friday at noon. So if you want to send it to me, I can look at it. That gives me time to turn around and give you some feedback and maybe tell you, hey, this is missing, or go into some more detail here. That gives you some time to revise it and resubmit it before the due date. But I do need it by Friday at noon. And please just send me a quick note. Don't just submit it in there because I don't necessarily see it that way. But just say, hey, Kristen, would you mind giving me some feedback? And I'll be happy to do that. Gretchen, you said about the assignment, I don't have any questions for now. It came to my head. How long does the audio for the discussion board? Yes, Amber answered you, 2 to 3 minutes for the audio visual presentation. So as close as you can get to that, I appreciate it. I have had some students, go on for like 20 minutes. And just keep in mind, I have 75 to grade. So please keep it to that lower time frame, that smaller time limit. I would definitely love to listen to you guys all day long, but I wouldn't be able to accomplish much else. So it's just really also a practice in communicating a clear and concise message that gets to the point as well. So 2 to 3 minutes should do it, and just make sure you're answering those 4 prompts. And this is for the 2.3 discussion. So anything about the anything that I've discussed thus far, I'm happy to answer for you guys before I move on. Okay, well, guys, if something comes up, definitely just put the question in the chat box and I'll come back to it. But I want to talk for a bit of time today about creating your own brand, right? Because you're going to be eventually completing the brand yourself presentation. So we need to talk about some items that goes into a personal brand. So if I were to ask you guys at this point, how would you define your personal brand? What would you say? How would you summarize your own personal brand? And that sometimes is very, very hard to do. So it's the way that you present yourself. It's what encompasses you. What shows that you're a professional in your industry. Oftentimes your brand is your reputation, okay? And so that's something that's going to be a lot of factors coming into your brand and your reputation, and a couple of things that you want to keep in mind when trying to preserve your brand as well. So when you're starting to develop and create your brand, it's not only going to be about yourself. It's not only going to be about your own perception of yourself, but it's also going to be about how others perceive you. So say, because Amber, you were the last one to comment in the chat box, if I was to say, Amber, if your best friend is in class with us and I asked your best friend, who is Amber? What would they say? And that's something that you need to take into account, because you need to take into account not only how you view yourself, but how others perceive and view you as well. And that can be tricky because the perception of others is something you really don't have control over. And it's coming into play, and that might be a very different perspective than your own. But the goal here is, guys, as you're starting to create your brand, is that you want to be in complete control as much as you can of your personal brand, okay? So the communication that you put out into the world, the work that you share with the world, all should be gelling together with who you are as a professional in your industry. And so with my personal brand, mine has to have a lot to do with being an educator and who I want people to think of me as an educator, my reputation as someone that has been working at Full Sail, okay, and what comes to mind. So I want to give you guys this example in social media to come into play here. Have you guys ever heard of this site, the website called ratemyprofessor.com? Anybody heard of that one? You can answer in the chat box really quick. Anybody have heard of that website? Amber's saying, oh yes, LOL. Okay, well, that website, Brett, you're saying years ago. When I was working at the other 2 colleges that I worked at prior to Full Sail, obviously their scheduling was very different. At Full Sail, you guys are just kind of placed with an instructor. At my other colleges, students would register for classes on their own based on the instructor, based on the date and time, all of those things, okay? And, this wasn't around when I was in college many, many, many years ago, but it is a major factor for students now, and it's called ratemyprofessor.com. And anyone could go on this website and pull up a professor's name and give a review or a rating, all right? And why was that important? That was important because students would fill your classes or not fill your classes based on your brand, based on your reputation as an educator. So I had to be very cognizant of that anyone at any time could go online and say what they wanted. All these stupid updates. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry about this. So they could easily just go online and say whatever they wanted, and I had to be aware of that my reputation in the classroom needed to match my reputation out on this web page. Because if students didn't sign up for my class, guess what? My classes would close, and guess what? I don't have income, which is a big issue for me. All right. So it all kind of comes together. So as you guys are starting to create your own work and communicate into the world, make sure that that work and that message is continually representing who you are as a professional in the industry. Control that message as much as possible, especially with social media. That stuff doesn't have a tendency to just disappear. It can come back to follow you, and that's something that you want to think about as you're becoming a professional and the work that you are creating. So just kind of a message out there. So the process of creating your own brand, there's a couple of steps here, and something that you want to just start to kind of tap into the very surface of. It's not something that we're going to accomplish overnight, but it's something that you want to be aware of. So here's the process. First is to discover who you are, what you want to do in life, what are your strengths, what are your passions, and what are your goals? Coming back to that idea of learning your why at your very core. Why is it that you are on this path? Step 2 is all about creating. And that is when you start creating the work. And the work that you produce should be representative of the message and the perception you would like of yourself. It all should match. Number 3 is to communicate, okay? You guys should become your own public relations person, right? You have the ability to put your work out there into the world. The game has changed so much with how people communicate about their professional brand, okay? So be sure that you are the one heading that task and making sure that the message that is out there is the message that you want to be out there. You're in control of the communication of your brand. And then lastly, step number 4 is to maintain. So you don't want to go through steps numbers 1 through 3, discovery, creation, communication, and just say, all right, call it a day, I'm done. You have to do that day-to-day grind, the maintenance, and your brand must grow and evolve as you do. And this is where that everyday, that day-to-day effort really comes into play. You have to do that day-to-day work in order to maintain your brand. So I wanted to talk for a moment about, some things that some companies do to continue to have you come in and visit them. And I'll take the example, and I think mostly everyone can relate to this company. Okay, so there's a coffee company that people generally almost religiously visit on a daily basis. Is their coffee cheap? No. Is it something that's cost efficient? No. But why do people continually go back to this one particular coffee company quite a bit when they have a ton of others to choose from? So if you live in my area, I live in Orlando in this little area called Conway. And on the right side of the road is a Starbucks, okay? And that's the coffee company that I'm talking about. And I hate coffee. I think it's disgusting. But of course, I've been to a Starbucks, and I know they're a coffee company. So on one side of the road is Starbucks, and yet on the other side of the road is a McDonald's. And you will see, McDonald's is obviously cheaper, might be quicker, but what keeps people coming into that Starbucks day after day after day? What are some things that you guys could share with me that you think Starbucks as a brand provides to their customers? What are some things that stick out about Starbucks to keep people coming back? And you guys can answer me in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you. What is it about Starbucks that entices people to come in day after day to pay for a $5 coffee? What is it about them? Have you guys never been to a Starbucks before? I'm not hearing anything coming through. What is it about Starbucks? Is it their personalization? Mercedes, thank you. They kind of make it like a lifestyle. They have more than coffee. Gretchen, you're funny. I ask myself every time that question every time. Elizabeth, variety. You're on the keto diet and you can't get anything at McDonald's. That's a great one that I haven't heard before. Trevor, they're world renowned. Okay, so that's a great start, guys. So they're providing a lot of things that some other companies can't do. What else emotionally, or what is the feel that people get when they come into a Starbucks? What is that feel that keeps bringing them back? Elizabeth, great ambiance. It's a very kind of chill, relaxed, hey, welcome. You guys can see, you can stay for 5 minutes, you can stay for 5 hours, and we're not going to bother you, right? It's very casual and laid back. What else is the feeling that Starbucks provides? Trevor, you've never been in one. Maybe Trevor, you have to go do an experiment and go into one this week and see how you feel when you walk into a Starbucks. But oftentimes it's personalization, right? Elizabeth's saying it's a great homework place. A friend of mine, she would set up camp. She's a CPA, and she would just set up camp and work there all day long, and no one would bother her. She's on the free Wi-Fi, but of course she would buy, drinks and some of the food items from there. And it's a nice place to kind of connect with other people as well. But oftentimes, since you've been the regular there, there's personalization. They ask for your name. They sometimes get the spelling of the name right on the cups. And, it's just a very welcoming and friendly environment, where if you go to McDonald's, do you think that you would get that same service, that same ambiance, the same personalization? More than likely not. So a couple of comments coming in here. Amber, you're a fellow coffee hater too. Glad I'm not alone in that anymore. Starbucks sticks out to me, though, because in a lot of places there aren't a lot of other options, definitely. Plus, there's a certain factor of fitting in when it comes to Starbucks. Everyone goes to Starbucks, so obviously you have to go too, right? So I think that's a great array of points there. I hate coffee, but yet I can still find something. I love the salted caramel hot chocolate, so I can find something that I like there. I'm a hardcore Diet Coke addict. Sadly, they don't serve Diet Coke there, but maybe one day they will. Gretchen saying, in my earlier years of college, I used to think I was going to get some homework done. It did not work for me as homework place at all. And sometimes that's true. I mean, you kind of have to be in that zone to be able to work there. And I do see quite a people doing that. A lot of meetings happen there as well. It's a more casual environment sometimes than a formal office building. Byron is saying hospitality. Yes. Trevor, you don't go to Starbucks. When I pull into Dunkin' Donuts, they have my order before I make it to the speaker. Another reason, great, Trevor. So you're talking about Dunkin' Donuts and that personalization that brings you back there. So that's part of their brand as well with Dunkin' Donuts. So kind of think about that, guys, when you're thinking about your preferences with companies and why it is that you continue to go back to certain places or buy certain products. What is it about their brand that makes you feel something as a consumer? Okay, kind of take those ideas and put them into play in creating your own brand. What is it that you want your reputation to be? What is it that you want people to say when they say Trevor? Oh yeah, when I think of Trevor, I think of one of the most hardworking and reliable individuals in the industry. Definitely call Trevor for this project. Okay, so that's kind of your brand, your reputation, and what you make others feel and think when they think of your name. Okay, so start just kind of thinking that in broad terms, and that's what you want to start communicating with the brand yourself presentation. But just a couple of other hints here. Definitely be transparent with your brand. Okay, you really don't want to set yourself up as someone that you're not. Excuse me, but you want to be authentic, okay? You want to be very honest. Own yourself, give the audience your authentic you and not what you think that they are expecting to see. Have a little bit of vulnerability with your brand, okay? Communicate humanness. That vulnerability really is what connects us as people, okay? So include a little bit of that in your own brand. Also be unique. Don't try to hide your differences. Don't try to fit in better. Be okay with being the only person in the room with your particular point of view. So be honest, be unique, and don't compromise, okay? Speak very confidently about what you really believe in and don't back down. So you have this power to use your personal brand to show who you are on the inside, on the outside. So own who it is that you are. So that's the discussion that I wanted to take you guys through regarding branding. So here's just a recap of week number 2, which again, guys, this is a busy, busy week. Please try to set up your week as well as you can to try and divvy out these assignments and kind of lay out your week as best you can for your schedules. Again, everything is going to be due on June 10th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The only exception to that is going to be the due date for the initial post of the 2.3 assignment is this upcoming Thursday, and that is June 7th. So that needs to be put up into the platform. So that is going to wrap it up for today. Do you guys have any questions for me about any of the assignments or what we've covered thus far? Trevor, you're saying with the 2.3, the page says due by Wednesday, but my slide stated Thursday. Yes, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. This tends to be a very busy week, so I wanted to give you guys an extra day to do the initial post. So Thursday is the deadline for the initial post for the 2.3. Some other instructors keep it on Wednesday. I do give my students until Thursday to do it. Thank you for having me clarify that. I appreciate it. So any questions, guys? Anything I can address for you? Gretchen, you're welcome for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording off. And if you guys don't have any questions, you're free to go. But I will stay here in the go-to training for a couple of minutes if you wanted to chat about anything. If not, you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you.